Last time on Building Resilience, we were installing a peel and stick roofing membrane from Benjamin Opdyke that's vapor open. To do it, we were snapping lines, cutting sheets, peeling backing, and sticking it down. Then we rolled it into the substrate, like self-respecting carpenters do. Oops.
We're all familiar with ice and water shield. That's that peel and stick stuff you put around the eaves. Typically from there we switch over to a synthetic or some other kind of underlayment for the rest of the roof that's stapled down. Now, Benjamin Opdyke has a product called Vapor Dry. And Vapor Dry is a self-adhered membrane. It's got a solid acrylic backing, and when you lay that down over the roof deck, you have continuous air sealing across the entire surface. However, one of the big advantages is, unlike ice and water shield, which is vapor impermeable, this product is fully vapor permeable. This means that any moisture, any water that manages to get from the inside of the house up into the rafters or the truss area has the ability to get through this membrane and out into the world and away from all your wood products. Another advantage of Opdyke's Vapor Dry roofing underlayment is the ability to walk on the surface with confidence. Unlike a mechanically fastened system that's using a cap fastener or staple to hold it down to the roof deck, because it's continually adhered, it's insanely grippy and there's no sag, there's no movement in it as you walk across that surface.
And as long as we're walking along that surface, we rolled out a cedar breather ventilation mat. And then we installed a standing seam metal roof over that. The roofing comes from ABC, which is as easy to remember as 1, 2, 3, only different. The roofing panels clip together and screw down, but before you can do that, you need to deal with the lower edge of the roof, the drip edge flashing. Sections are installed along the bottom edge, sealed at the seams, and screwed down to the roof deck. A seal down strip is then added along the bottom edge to seal the bottom of the roof panel to the drip edge. Before installing those roofing panels, though, they must be modified so that they can tie into the drip edge. The edge seams need to be separated from the panel's bottom for about the first 1.5 inches. So he measures, squares up the lines, and snips the bottoms free so that it can be bent downward to create the interlocking hem. The roofing panel slips in place and he closes that hem with hand crimpers. Clips are clipped onto the standing seam and screwed down to the roof deck. The next panel clips over the clips, and we're back where we started. As the crew works across the roof, they measure top and bottom to make sure they're still square to the roof, and they keep rolling. At the end of the day, the edges are covered with gable trim, and the ridge is finished with a wider trim for shed roofs. Down on the ground, the masons are setting up to install some manufactured stone from Stoneworks. This will go on the remaining sections of wall that haven't been covered with cladding yet. Before we can install stone, though, we need to install a couple of traditional stucco coats, beginning with a scratch coat and a brown coat. But before that, we need to install some metal lath to the walls.
Before we can put the stone on, there's the prep work, and we all know that the prep work is maybe the most important part. And that starts usually with a double D or a tar paper as the WRB. In this case, we have GP's force field on there. And over that, we have our rain screen, the Slicker Max. The Max is the fabric that keeps the mortar from getting inside the rain screen. Once we got that in place, we put on the lath. Now, believe it or not, lath has a front, a back, a top, and a bottom. In fact, it's so important that we install it the right way that we have lath inspections here. So the first step is the back side, which is the bumpy side. And we can feel it. So we want to make sure that the smooth side is forward. Then the next step is, are we upside down? Or are we right side up? If we're upside down, it's shiny. If we're right side up, it's got a matte feeling to it. So when we have our inspections here, the inspector is going to feel that it's smooth, that it's installed flat, that there's no waves to it, and then he's going to shine a light at it to make sure that it's the dull side up. Once that's in place, a scratch coat of mortar goes on, and then the guys get to work.
Like Michael said, there's a little bit that goes into the prep work. First up, they install a weep screed at the bottom of the wall behind the rain screen and WRB. Next, they'll install metal lath along the wall and wait for an inspection. After the inspector gives the thumbs up, they'll add a scratch coat and brown coat, just like with a regular 3-coat stucco system. Now comes the manufactured stone. Begin at the corner and alternate directions for each course, but don't run all the way up the corner just yet. Set the corner and the first course, and then set the second corner piece, filling in some of the next course, and so on. But let's back up a little more and look at the job site setup. Before sticking rocks to the wall, the crew sticks some site protection in place. Blocks keep the scaffold from sinking into the flower beds and scratching the concrete. And it's a good thing they did it because the bosses around here checking things often. They cover the stone path with strips of plywood, and they use drop cloths to protect the landscape from mortar, which they begin mixing right now. Jose begins working at the outside corner, and you can see the weep screed at the bottom of the wall embedded in the first couple coats of stucco. This allows water out of the assembly, and if it's installed level in the first place, it'll provide a good guide for that first course of stone. Jose uses a level to mark lines atop each course as he installs it, just to keep it honest. There are little nubs along the edges of the stone from the manufacturing process that Jose knocks off with his rock hammer as he installs a dry stack wall. This will help him achieve a tighter look. The dry stone is set in place to gauge the fit, and then the back is buttered with mortar. It's then pressed into place. He works both sides of the corner, extending out as far as he can comfortably reach. In this case, it's only a few feet over to the door in one direction and about 1.5 feet over to a stop where there'll be some exterior cabinetry later. As in all stonework, the corners alternate in length. This first one extends to the right, and the next one will extend to the left. In the case of manufactured stone, it's an aesthetic choice. In actual stone wall construction, it's a structural necessity. In general, stonemasons try to bridge joints between stones in one course with full stones on the next course. As he works his way to the top of the cabinetry block out, he has to consider the height of the stones to make a smooth transition. Cutting the stone is done with a wet saw. The next obstacle is a window. Jose runs the course up under the window, leaving enough space to place a sill afterward. He uses small chips as shims to even up the courses until they're all set up. At the top of the window, he again finds a stone height that'll align and allow a smooth course over and into the corner. Lastly, he fills in the top of the wall the same way that he filled in the rest of the wall: dry fitting, cutting, buttering the backs, and placing the stones. Some cuts are a little more complicated than others, and sometimes what seemed obvious at the top of the scaffolding gets a little foggy down at the wet saw. But in the end, he cuts it once and sticks it to the wall. Filling the rest is a matter of picking through the pile for the right pieces. Stepping back, we can see that the whole composition really looks great. Speaking of great, we'd like to thank all the trade professionals who worked in this season of Building Resilience, as well as the sponsors who sent their products to the job site, so we'd have something to install. Because without products or professionals to install them, it'd be a pretty boring show. And without viewers, it would be a complete waste of time. So thanks for watching.